Professor Charney.
Good evening.
This isn't the scale, is it?
Oh no, of course not. I mean, obviously, the larval stage cannot be bigger than the fully formed stage.
Yeah, I should hope not. Okay. Well, okay. So, Professor, I have some questions for you. Now, to be fair, you're being paid to be here today.
Of course I am.
In fact, you're being paid up to this point $32,000.
That's correct. I've put in a lot of hard work.
And every hour that you spend talking today, you make another 1,500.
1,500 correct. So I'm here for about 20 minutes, 500.
Now, the man who's paying you is right here. It's Mr. Owens.
That is correct.
It'd be fair to say the defendant is your boss today.
No. I was called by the court today, but he is paying me because he is paying his attorney.
Okay, well, maybe he's not your boss, but he is paying you. He's the one writing the checks.
That's correct.
Now, you're aware, I heard you mention Dr. Ooms on the record, so you're aware of his conclusions.
Yes, I am.
And Dr. Ooms is the medical examiner who determined that Jacob Bennett died on June 16th.
That is correct, and he is wrong.
You don't agree with him because of some assumptions that he made.
Of course, he made several assumptions when he was running the body and the analysis of the body's decomposition.
I want to ask you about your investigation. Now, I heard you say on direct that you followed all guidelines straight to the letter.
That's correct.
Professor, you wrote an article a little while ago called The Do's and Don'ts of Collecting Arthropods at a Crime Scene. Is that right?
Excellent article.
And in that article, you outlined the minimum standards that any competent entomologist would follow.
That's correct.
One of those standards, Professor, is that you should never assume that the temperature at which you find the body, well, you should never assume that temperature has been constant for the whole time that body was in the ground.
Of course.
But you did assume that.
Well, for this test, I took the data, specifically regarding, I believe, you are to the vitreous potassium test.
No, I'm not, actually. I'm talking to you, Professor Charney, about your expertise, the bugs here. Now, you, in your article, talk about arthropods, and you say that there's an assumption that you should not make if you're a competent entomologist. And one of those assumptions is that you should never assume the temperature at which you find the body in the ground has been the same temperature the whole time the body was in the ground. Is that right?
That's correct.
But you did assume a temperature, a constant temperature the whole time.
Yes, I did. I used a standard formula because the body was buried underground. So the temperature above ground and the temperature within the soil is never the same, of course. So I used a standard formula to calculate the temperature below the ground.
Okay, and one of the other assumptions that you had to make, Professor, is that you should never assume that the eggs of the bugs were laid at the exact same time of death. But you did assume that.
That's correct. Well, I assume that because, again, the body was buried under the ground. So it's buried underground. It takes longer for the insects to kind of smell the scent of the decaying body. So it takes longer for them to descend upon the body.
And despite all those reasons, you still assumed it.
Of course.
Now, another one of those rules and your minimum standards that any competent entomologist would follow is that, well, you should always get expert help in a region which you're unfamiliar with.
Yes, these are minimum standards that they should adhere to. However, for this one, with the blowflies that I collected some in ethanol, which killed them, and some in the raw beef liver, which allowed me to develop. Now, comparing that to the standard cycle is served as a control for this experiment.
Okay.
Using a control, you do not need to consult experts because I tested it with the standard life cycle, and it turned out to be a match. So it allowed me to use the standard cycle.
So you did not consult local expert help?
No, I did not need to in this case.
Despite it being one of the things that the minimum standards any competent entomologist would have done.
Yes, however, it was not required because I used scientific procedure and definitely used a control, like I was saying, with the raw beef liver and the ethanol. And since it matched up to this cycle, I had no reason to.
Okay. Well, Professor, I also want to ask you, now, you told us on direct that you determined that, well, Jacob Bennett must have died between June 20th and June 26th. Is that right?
That is correct.
And well, that's the time that your boss was out of town.
I really don't know.
You don't know if Jackie Owens was out of town during that range you gave?
No, I don't know where Jackie Owens was.
Okay. Now, you also examined the mud on the defendant's car, correct?
That's correct.
And Professor, is your statement that unfortunately the mud on his car was consistent with the Midlands Calkins Cliffs area?
However, like I said, it contained calcium carbonate. Now that is found in any number of locations in Midlands. So you must count all those locations, and it could have theoretically come from any of those. So without knowing for sure, it's equally likely that it came from any number of locations, like Calkins Cliffs or baseball fields, basically anywhere that contains calcium carbonate.
Professor, I know you know a lot about this stuff, and I just want to ask you, if you thought that it was unfortunate that your boss, well, the mud on his car was consistent with where Jacob Bennett's dead body was found, and you thought that was unfortunate.
That's correct.
No further questions.